If you are someone who loves the idea of reading, or maybe used to enjoy reading, but you can't seem to focus on a book anymore for longer than a few minutes, anyone else out there ever have this problem? I feel you. I've been there, and I might have a solution for you. A while back, I posted a video. It was a highlight from the 1980 PBS television special Cosmos with Carl Sagan, who was one of the greatest science communicators of all time. In the clip, Sagan, in his characteristically comforting and level-headed tone, is seen walking through a library. He gestures toward the shelves and says, "If I were to read a book a week for my entire adult lifetime, I would have read maybe a few thousand books, no more. But that's only 0.1% or so of the total number of books in the library. The trick is to know which books to read. But," he says, "they're all here." Now, I thought this was a pretty cool statement about how important it is to make sure you're consuming the right knowledge and how little of accumulated human knowledge you could actually hope to get through and experience over the course of your life. But something kind of weird happened when I posted that video online. A bunch of people I interacted with online seemed to think that it isn't really possible or feasible to read a book a week, or that you can't read that quickly and still retain the information that you're taking in. Or they'll say, "Hey, it's about quality, not quantity." To that last point, I can't really help but think, like, why are quality and quantity mutually exclusive? What if you were able to read a high quantity of really high quality books? Like, wouldn't that be something? I don't usually worry too much about comments online. I don't really argue with people in the comment section, but I found myself thinking, why do you think it's not possible? Time-wise, you can easily read a book a week. Well, easy for me to say, right? There's still the problem of focus. Have you ever worked overtime before? Like an 8-hour workday that turned into 10 hours or 12 hours or longer? Or have you ever had a day where you just worked on a project that was important to you? And whether it was because you were genuinely having a good time with it or because you just wanted to get the darn thing done, you were really in the zone and you just spent a long time on it. Maybe you started working at it at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and before you knew it, it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I know I've done that a few times with some home improvement projects, but it was definitely not because I was enjoying them. Or, okay, how about a more casual example? Like you discover a new TV show and you end up watching like 2 seasons in about 2 days. I mean, the same goes for video games and getting wrapped up in those. There are video game streamers on like Twitch and YouTube and TikTok who they frequently will play games for upwards of like 10 or 12 hours a day, like every day. And I noticed nobody seems to say that these things are impossible. Now, for some of us, we might find them to be a little crazy, but we don't sit here saying like, oh, that's not possible. So, how long does it take to read a book? Now, reading speed does vary naturally from person to person, but let's err on the conservative side, and we'll say it takes you about as long to say the words in a book as it takes you to read them in your head. Most people, from what I understand, can read a little faster than this, but, we'll go with it for now. Okay, now, let's apply that to the overall length of a book. Looking at the numbers, the average length of a narrated audiobook is about 10 to 11 hours. I've listened to some that are a lot longer than that and some that are shorter, but let's go with 10 to 11 hours. There's 24 hours in a day, so if you were reading at about the same speed as an audiobook narrator reads, isn't it possible to actually read 2 books in a single day? I mean, it might not be fun, but if you had no other choice, you could do it. You would just really need a nap at the end of that 24 hours. Based on our numbers, reading a book in a week means a commitment of about 10 hours of reading per week. That's about an hour and a half a day. That's less than the average amount of time that Americans spend on social media daily. So in other words, reading a book a week, it isn't just possible, it's not even a very hard thing to do. Okay, there we go. We've officially solved the problem of time. There's still the problem of focus. How many of us can actually sit still and read for 1.5 hours straight? This is something that I've personally struggled with a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've started one book, gotten about 50 pages in, and then gotten distracted with another book that looks really, really cool. So I start reading that book instead for about 50 pages. And then a new cool looking book is recommended to me by a friend, and the vicious cycle continues until you have an entire shelf of books that you've started but never finished, all sitting there staring at you in judgment as you start on yet another novel that you added to your Amazon cart, or you bring home another bag of used books from the thrift store. It's not just reading for me either. With so many other fun entertainment distractions out there, it can be hard to sit down and focus on a book. I might have a solution for you. But first, I want to make one thing very, very clear. Remember, reading is supposed to be fun, or informative, or both at the same time. But if you don't like to read, you don't have to force yourself to do it just because you think you should. Reading is meant to be a hobby that you do for enjoyment. It's no more or less honorable than any other hobby that you do for fun. So do what's fun for you. Life's too short not to. However, if you do like to read and you just have trouble focusing, I want to share something that has helped for me. Personally, I've found that the more anxieties and stressors and moments of, oh my goodness, I don't have enough hours in the day to get everything done that I need to get done, let alone the things that I want to get done, the more difficult it is to sit down and just relax with a book. How can you sit there and focus on a single book when there's so much else going on in your life? Well, how about this? If you have difficulty paying attention to a single book, my suggestion would be, don't read a single book. Instead, try reading a stack of books. Yup, a book stack. I read stacks of books, and I had to start doing this to prevent distractions from halting my progress. See, for some reason, reading 50 pages of a single book feels like way too much of a time commitment when there's so much else that needs done in my life, or, so many other fun things to do. But compare that to reading just 10 pages from 5 different books, or 5 pages from 10 different books. If you split that up throughout the day, it doesn't seem as big of a time commitment for some reason. It's kind of like you're able to trick yourself into reading those 50 pages. Now, I know that this strategy might raise a few eyebrows, like, isn't it hard to remember what's going on in each of these different books you're reading? I mean, no, not really. It doesn't seem to be any more difficult than it is to be partway through a few different seasons of a few different shows at once, or to be following a few different pro teams across different sports. I find this to be really effective at combating FOMO, fear of missing out. You can read your entire to-read stack all at once without wondering, like, what if that book at the bottom of the stack, what if it's better than the one that I'm reading at the top? I think it's actually pretty fun to jump from one world to another as quickly as picking up the next volume in your stack, and you'll probably find yourself looking forward to the shift. Maybe on some days, 5 or 10 pages just isn't enough, and you find yourself reading a little bit more just because you can. So that's what I do. I devote some time to reading, and I have a stack of books, and when I'm reading one and I find my attention starting to wander a little bit, I will put my bookmark in, set it aside, and I'll pick up the next book in the stack, and I'll read 5 or 10 pages of that book. So, to summarize, guess what? It is possible to read a book a week, and here's the math to back it up. 50 pages a day. Whether you do 50 pages of one book, 10 pages of 5 books, or 5 pages of 10 books, that comes to 350 pages a week, which is about the length of the average book. Now, granted, if you start this habit now, you're not going to have finished a book after 1 week. Instead, you're going to be partway through a bunch of different books. But over time, you're going to see that average out to about a book a week. So, 52 books in a year, that's not bad. Now, to wrap up this video, I'm going to leave you with a very important and potentially unpopular piece of reading advice. If you're not enjoying a book, don't bother. Like I said, reading is supposed to be fun or informative or both. And like Carl Sagan said, you can only hope to read a very small fraction of the total number of books that are out there. Life is just too short to spend your time reading books that aren't for you. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean they're bad, and just because other people think they're good doesn't mean that you are obligated to enjoy them. Give them away or throw them in the trash. The book police will not come and arrest you, and plus side, you've just made room for another book. So, what's your book stack going to look like? This high, this high, this high? If you decide to take the leap and try the book stack reading method, send me a picture of your book stack. I'd like to see what you're reading. And if you're looking for any good books to add to your book stack, I've got a few recommendations. I wrote them and they're in the description. You should go down there and click on them. Plus, kind of cool, I also have some of my novels available in audiobook format, completely free on YouTube. And I'm not talking about AI-generated garbage either. These are fully human-narrated, professionally produced audiobooks, and I've just made them free on my YouTube channel because I figured, why not? Might be kind of fun to share them. Anyway, this is Corey McCullough, author here, saying happy reading and happy listening. But over time, as this goes on, you're going to see... I thought I wasn't recording for a second. For a second there, I thought I hadn't hit the record button, and I'd been going for like 20 minutes. Whoo! Okay, anyway.